We're going to continue with the foreground off to the right here, where the trees are bare and we see that scruffy grass and the reeds popping up out of the sand dunes going down to the beach. So things I want us to be aware of would be that this is secondary to this. So this is the main attraction in the foreground, with this being secondary. So I'm going to go ahead and dampen my paper. So this, I am working upright, everyone, and I'm adding water to the surface. It's going to move down the paper, and I'm going to start with the trees. I'm going to use that rigger or liner that I talked with you about last week. I'm mixing up a little bit of burnt umber and Viridian to get a cool in temperature, almost black. And now that the paper is damp, I'm going to go ahead and just start lining in what's there. The great thing about this brush is that I can push down and get, oh my goodness. Okay, you see how that line is starting to spread out. I'm not worried about that. I like the way these trees are leaning. Notice I am starting light. You can see this Viridian and burnt umber will give me a bit of an olive look. I really just want to create the feel of this. And what bogs me down is when I try to just simply create what's there. I'd rather create the feel of it. I find more freedom in creating the feel rather than representing every branch. And every tree trunk. And when in doubt, I add the water. And that's giving me what I want. This is burnt umber. My paper, it has dried in just a short amount of time. I'm still using the liner brush, and I'm starting to move down this way. So had my paper been damp, this would have gone on a little easier, but there's always a way. This is still damp. And I do want this to be cool because I want it to recede. So I'm going to take my number 8 brush and I'm just going to soften and drag some of this paint over. Scrubbing out that bit of a line. I can take my liner, and the paper is damp, and I can now, I'm going to go back in with the yellow ochre and just add the grasses. I'm going to touch it with a little bit of burnt sienna. A little more. It's really mixing on the paper. I'm dragging it. And now with my number 8, I'm just going to add a little more of the Viridian and burnt umber. A little more green. So what surprises me about this whole painting is that Viridian green, my least favorite color, becomes the thread, the color thread that weaves throughout the whole thing. So even adding it, okay, I'm going to let that dry. Everyone, I just want you to know that I really felt the need to add the Viridian to pull in the color of the water to the foreground. I'm also looking at the black and white photo, the grayscale, and seeing just how dark this one area is. But the Viridian, I think, gives it the harmony. This strong burnt sienna really hit me just too hard last week. So I'm going to go up here, and some of those lime greens need a touch of the Viridian. I think it helps a lot. Okay, over here, again, I'm going to go over this with a little Viridian. Okay, I'm going to let this remain soft. I just saw this little tree right there. All right, so we're gonna put it in. Same thing, I'm softening right here. I'm gonna go ahead and just represent the photo. I like the scruffiness of the shoreline. To me, that really represents the wind, the fierce wind, the fierce tide. I don't know much about Lake Michigan, but I'm hoping some of you that do will be able to verify that for me. So here's my liner, and I'm going to start with the thickest, a little more brown. Part of the tree. You can see I just get better as I do this. Those first marks are difficult. I'm just cold. It's like making a cold call to somebody you don't know. It's really hard to. So really, starting with the trunk of that tree wasn't such a good idea. It's like starting a portrait with the eye, with I always start with the eyes. I'm contradicting everything I say, but do you know what I mean? It takes a bit of time to warm up, to get the feel of what your hand needs to do, the pressure that you need to make. So this tree really bends with branches to this side. And when I feel like I've really gotten too heavy, I just add water on top to let it drip through. And then I drag it some more. The tops of the trees are always lighter in contrast than the trunk because they just start disappearing. So a little bit of and I need to root that tree into the ground. Viridian and burnt umber. This is still wet. And again, where you feel like you've gotten dark, just add water and pull it through. You can always go back. Probably need a little more up there. You know, doing a landscape is very similar to doing a portrait. It has to be soft, and there has to be life. I may just leave that alone, but I'm going to let it dry and reassess. That was water. I felt like maybe I just got a little too dark right there. Okay. One thing I can do before I end is to just soften in a couple places over here. Okay.